I don't see many videos talking about tip number 6. And that is, should you work retained with a recruitment agency or should you work contingency? Now, this is probably the first time I've ever spoken out about retained versus contingency. And I will agree with 99% of what a lot of people say about retained recruitment. In other words, you pay someone up front to do, and then you pay them at certain intervals of the process, is the best recruitment. It's factual that it has higher fill rate and can lead to better quality candidates. Now, it doesn't always necessarily lead to better quality candidates. You still may have the fact that you've made the wrong hire, but the process is more robust. The process is more focused upon finding the better candidates, giving that agency the time, the breathing room. Like I keep saying in other kind of videos, working closely with an agency really helps that agency. Retained is like the next level of helping that agency, giving them the budget and the freedom to go off there and find you exclusively, spending their time on you because you've paid for that time already. And that's the advantage of retained. When you versus it against contingency, there's only a few pros to contingency. The second best to retained is exclusive. Now that is probably easier for some managers to swallow, not paying up front, but working as closely as possible as that agency. But there's got to be incentives put into place with that. That agency is going to believe that's why you're working with them. And that's why the last video where I talked about working closely with an agency, developing that relationship, that trust works with them. It works both ways, that trust, by the way. It works both ways. You've got to be able to trust them as much as they've got to trust you. But once you build that relationship, working exclusive is only a very small step to working retained. But if you can work if you can't get sign off by certain people in the business and they don't believe retained is the best direction to go, then that exclusive working with an agency is probably the next best thing. Not the best thing, but the next best thing. Working with multiple agencies, as I've said in other videos, is probably the worst thing a company can do. It is detrimental. The average recruitment agency on a contingency basis fills about 15 to 20% of the jobs. So that is 1 in 5 jobs they would fill. Whereas retained work tends to fill about 98 to 100% of the jobs. So basically every job that an agency would get retained will be filled. Every job a recruitment agency gets contingency, and I find the formula to that is the more agencies in that contingency, even less that figure of filling that role. Could be all the way down to 2%, even 1%, even 0%. No chance of filling it. And that is probably one of the issues with contingency. So if you can do your best, and I keep saying it in other videos, I'll say it again, work exclusively with an agency, but better still, work retained with an agency at the same time. That's probably my best tip, retained versus contingency.